So, since the Sony A7 lineup is all getting an upgrade, everyone's forgetting about this fella, the A7S Mark II. And today we're going to take it out in where it works best, in a low light environment. Since the A7S III isn't out yet, today we're just going to take this out for a little spin and talk about what we'd like to see in the next iteration. So right now, it's 5 p.m, it's about to be sunset, and I have literally no light. I don't know if you can see it. We actually shoot all our videos on A7S II, so it probably looks like it's daytime, but it's super dark. I'm shooting this shot at f11, 6400 ISO, and I'm getting 1/800th of a second shutter speed. In the dark. Oh, hell yeah. So I don't know if you know our videographer Josh, who is currently filming right now, but he was telling me that although the autofocus isn't quick, its ability to autofocus in low light is amazing, and you're totally right, mate. You're actually so correct. It is incredible. So just to talk about the A7S II from a design perspective, it's got the same ergonomics as it does with the A7 Mark II and the R Mark II in terms of the body shape. At the top, you've got a locking mode dial, so in case you hit it, it doesn't move out of whack. At the back, you've got a tilting screen. It's a 3-inch screen, but it's not a touch screen. And at the top, you've got a 2.36 million dot EVF, which is nice and bright. On the left-hand side, you've got a headphone and a microphone port, as well as a HDMI and a USB port. On the right-hand side, you've got a single SD card slot, and at the bottom, you've got a battery, which is the MP-FW50, which is the same battery they use in the A6000 series, as well as the Mark II A7 series. So just what I'd like to see going off the A7S II into the next iteration. We already know that based off the A7R Mark III and the Mark III, you're going to get a slightly deeper grip. You're going to get a brand new Z series battery for longer battery life. You're going to get a dual SD card slot, would be awesome. A move from the record button from the side to the middle, and also an autofocus point joystick. On top of that, what we'd like to see is them possibly change the door system. I didn't really like the A7 III or the Mark III's doors on the left-hand side to access the ports because they were quite flimsy. And one cool thing we'd like to see is implementing some kind of touch tracking autofocus system, something similar to the Canon 5D Mark IV or any other Canon system, where you can just touch a subject and it will just automatically track for you, and also implement the touch features as well into the menu and playback, which would be really awesome. So what could be interesting now is with the new A7S Mark III is where it's going to sit between the lineup. So the A7 Mark III is already brilliant. Like, it's got amazing video specs, and its photography is amazing too. And they've just released the brand new FS5, which is also bonkers. But where the A7S Mark III is going to sit is going to be really, not awkward, but kind of interesting, because they don't want it to make it too good that it's going to overshadow the FS5, but not make it poor enough that the A7 Mark III is going to overtake it. So it's going to be interesting where Sony takes the next steps for their brand new S3. It's actually insane that I'm shooting at f11 right now because it's so dark. I'm pumping it at 20,000 ISO. How about we take it up? We're just gonna keep going up. It's got a native ISO range of 100 to 102,400. So, I mean, 51,000, here we go, boys. So yeah, 1,250 ISO. I can't tell from the back of the camera right now if the photos are actually like not noisy, but I guess I'll find out later when I chuck these images on my computer. So just some key features on the A7S II. So the first thing you need to know, it's got a 12.2 megapixel sensor combined with a Binds X image processor, allowing you to shoot up to 5 frames per second continuously, as well as give you a native ISO range of a whopping 100 to 102,400. Wowee, dude. In terms of the video specs, it records 4K UHD internally up to 30 frames per second and Full HD up to 120 frames per second. But just note, when you start filming after 100 frames per second, it does crop in a bit. You can record video externally via HDMI, uncompressed, and that will give you clean 4K recording at a 4:2:2 color sampling rate. In terms of the actual image stabilization, it's exactly the same as the other Mark II series. It's got a 5-axis in-body image stabilization system inbuilt. In terms of the autofocus, it uses a 169-point autofocus system with 25 contrast detection points. And for those who want a bit more flexibility in terms of their color grading, you can record in S-Log3. In terms of the performance of the A7S Mark II, with autofocus, it's not the fastest, but it's not the slowest one out there either. Where it excels is its ability to autofocus in low light, which it does extremely well in. On top of that, whether you're taking photos or whether you're taking video, it handles noise very well, and you can bump this ISO up in that high 6400 to 10,000 range and still get a nice clean shot. In terms of the actual battery life of the camera, it is not that great. You can get realistically 300 shots out of one charge for photos, and for videos, it's even shorter. For people who do photography, especially high-speed burst photography, you may not benefit from getting an A7S II because it only shoots at 5 frames per second. And on top of that, the autofocus isn't really ideal for that either. So it's more for people who record predominantly video, but still want a bit of photography action as well. So what I like to see in the A7S III performance-wise is firstly possibly a slight sensor update. So at the moment it's using a 12 megapixel sensor, which is great. But if they're going to advertise it as a hybrid camera, possibly increase it by a bit, maybe 14, 13 megapixels, let's say. Yes, it's going to have a bigger battery, so hopefully they stick with that Z series lineup. And what we'd also like to see is when you're recording in the 100 frame rate plus area, that it doesn't crop and it stays uncropped using the full sensor. In terms of photography wise as well, possibly a faster shooting rate and an overhaul on that autofocus system just to make it a bit better for tracking, and for people who want to use it in burst scenarios, the autofocus can keep up with their recomposition as well as their fast burst rate. And lastly, in terms of video performance, what we'd like to see is possibly an increase in the flexibility of the frame rates you get. So possibly 4K from 30 to 60 frames and Full HD from 120 to 240, or possibly a bit higher. However, we're not too sure about if that's going to be possible with the new A7S III, as it's not a part of their professional lineup, so they may not want to bunk their FS5 out of the market if they completely make the A7S III a video beast. In terms of photography, the image quality is great, even though it's a 12 megapixel sensor. The images are more than adequate and still have some room in dynamic range, especially in the shadows, for editing. Video quality is fantastic, and in fact, if you watch all our YouTube videos, we shoot them on an A7S Mark II. When you start to push the camera past the 100 frame per second mark, the image quality does look a bit softer, as it does have to push in more onto the sensor. If you are to use the camera in 4K, it is fantastic, but it's a battery drainer. And lastly, just my final thoughts on the camera. If you are concerned about price, then the Sony A7S Mark II is definitely the camera to get right now, as the price on it is amazing. Later on with the A7S Mark III, with the S2, it was released at above 4,000 Australian. So I'm going to assume the S3 is going to be way above that. And honestly, with the price you're paying for the performance you get in terms of video and photography in the S2, it is definitely worth the money. If you are a person that predominantly does video, I definitely recommend the S2. And if you want to dabble in a bit of photography, but don't really need the high resolution and the super fast shooting speeds, then the S2 is definitely perfect for that. Hopefully Sony watches our videos and takes our tips for their A7S Mark III, and hopefully it comes out soon because we've been waiting a long time for it. But if you have any questions on the A7S II, make sure to pop them in the comments below. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, as well as our blog, just to see full written reviews and what's going on in store. If you liked our video, make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button so you don't miss out on our next video. We upload every Tuesday and Thursday. See you later.